Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be showing you Glitch's upcoming Pride collection. I'm not sure how well you can see from here, but this is a massive 14-piece lineup in some assorted finishes, but they are mainly magnetics. I believe there are 7 total, including the one topper. Well, there's technically 2 toppers, but one is magnetic. And it's obviously in a largely rainbow color palette. This is also going to be a charity collection where $2 from every bottle sold will be donated to the North County LGBTQ+ Resource Center, which is a local organization to Glitch. So I will share some more information on the launch as well as my thoughts after comparisons, but for now, let me just show you the swatches. The first polish in the collection is Stonewall, and it's described as a brick red jelly base with a bright red magnetic pigment. This one is obviously inspired by the Stonewall riots, which pretty much kickstarted the modern LGBTQ+ rights movement. It took place on June 28th, 1969, following a police raid on the Stonewall Inn, a mafia-run safe haven for the queer community. I'm gonna do my best to include some of this background information that Brie included for these polishes and their inspirations, but I'm sure everything will be in the respective product descriptions. As far as the polish goes, this is a gorgeous red magnetic, definitely a little bit of that brick color, which you'll see later in comparisons. The formula was really nice and easy to work with. It built up beautifully as well. It is just a little bit on the sheer, almost jelly side, so even on 3 coats, I could still see a hint of nail line, but it wasn't super sheer because of the slightly darker color. And I think it's less noticeable in 2 coats when you do the velvet or unmagnetized styles. Next, I want to quickly feature Lock and Key, which recently launched. It's kind of like a pre-top coat treatment meant to lock in the magnetic effect so you don't have to magnetize after top coat. I did the glass bead effect on Stonewall, and since Lock and Key does still slightly re-wet the polish, you should still magnetize after Lock and Key. I only did it for 30 seconds thinking it would be enough, and while it doesn't look so bad here, after a minute or 2 it ended up kind of dispersing a little bit, which is what you see on the left. So I ended up trying it again by magnetizing for a full minute, which is what you see on the right, and it looks a lot better. The glass bead is locked in, and both of these clips are after top coat but without remagnetizing the top coat, if that makes sense. So I can definitely see the appeal for this type of product, but considering I knew how long this video was going to be, I only used it for the swatch just to share my first impression. Now, back to the collection, the following shade is called Marigold, and this is described as a burnt orange jelly base with red shimmer and an orange to gold magnetic pigment. This one was created to honor Marsha P. Johnson, since marigolds are often used to honor those who have passed away. Marsha was an early activist in the queer liberation movement. She's often credited as throwing the first brick at Stonewall. She helped found STAR, or the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, which is a trans advocacy group, and she later went on to engage in AIDS-related activism. So an absolute icon and just a beautiful polish to honor her. As you saw, this had a really great formula. I would say slightly more pigmented than Stonewall, so I found it pretty opaque for me on 2 coats alone, and as an orange polish lover, I really enjoyed this one. The glow is so gorgeous. I think the yellow in the collection is Safe House Glow, which was made to mimic the glowing window of a safe house amidst the riots. Safe House Glow has a soft smoky gray base with a strong gold pigment that shifts to green and teal in extreme angles with a light dusting of holographic shimmer. So while this does have a slightly moody gray base, that gold shimmer is so strong, so glowy. It's such a cool contrast, and I think perfectly captures the inspiration. The formula was really nice, as you saw. I got really even coverage on the first coat. As you saw though, I did kind of pull up some of the polish on the second coat, probably because I just didn't let it dry down enough. So that's my bad completely. It's nothing on the formula. I was just a little impatient. Between the slightly darker base, all the shimmer, and the hollow sparkle, I feel like this is a solid 2-coater. The next polish we have is AUREA, which stands for the Aromantic Spectrum Union for Recognition, Education, and Advocacy. AUREA was inspired by the arrow flag, and it's a deep black and green base with a greenish gold fine particle magnetic pigment. This one is absolutely stunning. I mean, I feel like fine particle magnetics are just having a moment. It's rare that you ever see a bad one, you know, but this color I think is just so beautiful. The formula itself was really nice, very pigmented despite being slightly jelly leaning. Since the base is so dark, I found it pretty much opaque for me in just the 2 coats. And yeah, it just looks so good no matter how you magnetize it. I especially loved it in the velvet and glass bead effects because it's just so juicy and dimensional. The next polish we have is Donuts, and it's described as a deep blue jelly base with a green to teal to blue magnetic pigment. And this one is inspired by the gay pride flag. It is also inspired by the Cooper Donuts riot, which happened in response to police harassment of the queer, predominantly gay male community at the Cooper Donuts donut shop in Los Angeles in 1959. This was back when police couldn't mind their own business and would arrest people for not looking the way they were assigned at birth, and everybody in Cooper Donuts decided to resist and throw donuts and coffee at the police officers to protest. Back to the polish though, this had another great formula, more on the pigmented jelly side, especially considering how dark of a base color this is. I only needed 2 coats to reach almost full opacity, and yeah, this just looks really great again, no matter how you magnetize it. Not quite a fine particle magnetic, but still very gemmy looking. Next, we have Protect the Dolls, which is described as a medium blue jelly base with pink to orange to green shifting shimmer, a dusting of hollow shimmer, and a silver magnetic pigment. You may have heard the name as a call or slogan to protect trans women from violence and discrimination, and the colorway of this is obviously inspired by the trans pride flag. This one had another fantastic formula, as you saw, very pigmented, maybe more on the crelly side, I would say. It didn't seem as sheer as some of the previous magnetics, and very buildable and full coverage on just 2 coats. And I feel like between all of the magnetic, the background shimmer, the hollow, it's just hard to see any visible nail lines, so I can't imagine people needing a 3rd for this one. Next up we have By Panic, which is described as a magenta jelly base with a blue to purple glowy shimmer and a linear holographic shimmer. And the name, if you don't know, is the feeling when you see multiple attractive people all at once. This one had another flawless formula, super full coverage and even coverage on the first coat. It is a tiny bit sheer, so again, I just needed 2 coats to make it fully opaque. I love the glowy blue shimmer in addition to the hollow, which I know is not really looking super hollow under my desk lighting, but it has a nice sparkle. The only thing is that I wish it did lean a little bit more in the magenta pink family. To me, this feels like a very blue-toned purple. Then we have AVEN, which stands for the Asexual Visibility and Education Network, which is the largest online ACE community. It's described as being a soft black base with iridescent purple flakes and scattered black holographic micro glitters. So the colorway of this one is inspired by the ACE flag. This had a pretty nice formula overall, as you can see a little bit more on the jelly side, so you can see some more visible nail line, but it is absolutely packed with those glitters, so I feel like it does a good job in obscuring that. You might need to do some manipulation or dabbing to get the flakes all evenly spread out. I managed to do a bit of a thicker second coat here, which I think, you know, looks opaque, but for the sake of like better application for a longer lasting mani, I would probably recommend doing 3 thinner coats. And I know that some of the other polishes had holographic sparkle in them, but this is the only one I included a flash clip for. Up next we have Lavender Menace, which is a black jelly base filled with purple sparkles and a two-toned purple and blue magnetic pigment. And this one is for the lesbians, which I know if you're familiar with the lesbian pride flag, you might be just as confused as I was, but Lavender Menace was a group of lesbian radical feminists. So they actively fought against the exclusion of lesbians from the feminist movement. You really can't get more badass than that, and I feel like this is such a cool polish to honor that, such a unique take on, what you normally think of for lesbian pride. The polish itself was also super gorgeous. It's a little bit on the jelly leaning side, but because it's a black base, I found it pretty much opaque in 2 coats, and I think this is actually my favorite from the collection. There is something about the magnetic pigment that is so captivating to me. When I saw it in the bottle alone, I thought it was okay, but on the nail, it really blew me away. We have another purple, and this one is called Sister Outsider, which is a black jelly base with magenta purple sparkles. This is chosen to represent royalty within queer history. It's named after the book Sister Outsider, written by Audre Lorde, a self-described black, lesbian, feminist, socialist, mother, warrior, and poet. And the book focuses on intersectionality while drawing from her personal experiences with racism, sexism, and homophobia. So an absolute queen and another gorgeous polish to honor her and her work. This is one of the few non-magnetics in the collection, but it was still super gorgeous, very easy to apply, a solid 2-coater because it is a bit of a darker shade, and the shimmer is super gorgeous, not quite glowy, but almost giving a metallic look. Of course, we have a neon pink in this lineup, and it's called Act Up, which is a neon pink crully base filled with a cool-toned pink sparkle. ACT UP, also known as the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, was founded in New York City in 1987 as a means to work to end the AIDS pandemic. The iconic ACT UP symbol is a pink triangle over the words "Silence equals death." And you can't be more loud and proud than a pink neon, right? Shocking to absolutely no one, this is another favorite from the collection. It's a neon pink. It's just gorgeous. I love the shimmer particle in here. It's definitely more subtle than a glowy shimmer, but I think it's still so pretty. We're nearing the end now. The next polish we have is Everyone Calls Me Sylvia, which is a midnight blue jelly base with a greenish gold to blue to purple holographic magnetic pigment. This is named after Sylvia Rivera, who is a revolutionary Latina trans activist, best known for her role in the Stonewall riots and for also co-founding STAR with Marsha P. Johnson. STAR advocated for bodily autonomy and worked to provide housing, food, and transportation for trans youth. So another absolute icon to be honored in this lineup. The polish itself was alright. I personally didn't love this one as much as some of the other shades, mainly because it is a little bit on the sheer jelly magnetic formula side, which just isn't my personal preference. I still had a little bit of a bald spot near the center tip of my nail even after 3 coats, but maybe if you are better at your application, you could get away with it in 2 coats, or you could probably just layer this over a black since it is a black base to begin with. But for what it's worth, I do like the color of the actual magnetic pigment. Also, there is a note that the base of this polish contains iron oxide, which means certain magnetizing techniques may pull the base color as well. I think it was most noticeable in the glass bead effect, looking a little bit more dispersed maybe. Finally, we have 2 toppers. The first one here is called Ally, which is a silver holographic magnetic topper. So although the Stonewall riots were led particularly by trans people of color, participation of allies such as Lucian Truscott IV and Lee Housekeeper played a key role in the documentation and support of the queer liberation movement. Since this is a topper, I'm showing it in 1 coat over a sheer pink as well as over white and black, and as you can see, there is a lot of this gray cast to it. I think it has a decent hollow flare, but as you might know, hollow magnetics aren't my personal favorite. And rounding out the collection is Be Gay, Do Crime, which is a silver holographic reflective glitter and rainbow flake topper. The phrase Be Gay, Do Crime originated in the early 2000s as a counterpoint to rainbow capitalism, with the intent to draw attention back to the roots of queer liberation. And even though this is a topper, I did also build this up in 3 coats because it is so packed with flakes. It's not going to be 100% opaque or full coverage by any means, but it just has this really beautiful layered effect to it. The flakies are so glowy, so gorgeous. I love the hollow sparkle in here, the reflective glitter, obviously. It is just so sparkly and in your face, so enjoy the clip here under flash. But I did also show this in 1 coat over white and black, as well as 2 of the polishes in the collection. And here is my thumb swatch collage of the Glitch Pride collection. I think this is a cool take on the traditional rainbow color palette that we always see for Pride. I know it's a lot of magnetics, but also a lot of blues and purples. Finally, we are moving on to comparisons, and we're starting with Stonewall and looking at it next to ILNP's Shirley and Mooncat's Beehole, or Your Heart's a Black Hole, both of which are red magnetics. I would say both of these are more true red shades, while Stonewall is a little bit in that red-orange family. I know it's kind of hard to see here, but at least Stonewall is also the lightest and most jelly of the 3 as well. So for more of that red-orange color, I figured I could pull out a couple of cracked jellies, which are Tomahto on the left and Grenadine on the right. Obviously, Tomahto is a little too light. It doesn't really compare at all, though I guess I would say the same about Grenadine, at least with doing just 2 coats. The last physical comparison I have is with ILNP's Penny, which is not a magnetic. It's just one of those shimmer microflake kind of finishes that ILNP does. I think it's the closest in terms of that red color. In certain angles, I feel like they do look incredibly similar, obviously if you're wearing Stonewall unmagnetized, but Penny has a little bit more of this golden flash from that shimmer. And lastly, for reference, I have a couple of these photo comparisons, starting with Holotaco's Sacrificial Lacquer, which kind of looks similar at first glance, but I know the Holotaco is much more opaque compared to Stonewall being a jelly-based magnetic. If anything, I think it might be closest to Cracked Drugstore Chocolate, though I think, again, Stonewall might be a little bit warmer. Moving on to Marigold, I think the 2 closest orange shades that I have to this are Orange Pop from ILNP's most recent Pop collection and ILNP's Pumpkin Patch, which isn't a magnetic, but I just think color-wise it's the closest. It does have the largest shimmer particle size though, so it is a little bit more visually busy, at least if you are going to wear Marigold unmagnetized. But once you do magnetize it and see that red shimmer in the background, I feel like, it kind of has a similar vibe, but without being one-to-one dupes. It's definitely closer than Orange Pop, which is the most true sort of mid-tone orange. From Holotaco, I think the closest is Zyler Cat Eye, which is kind of a coppery orange shade. It's a little bit lighter with more of a pale gold magnetic shimmer. And then from Cracked, they have Bookmarks The Spot, which I think is again pretty close when it comes to this warm orangey copper, though I think Marigold is just a little bit darker and maybe with a more crisp magnetic effect. Moving on to Safe House Glow, I immediately thought of Crack's Mourning Light from their Halloween collection last year. It's the only other gray base with a gold shimmer that I have. The only thing it's really missing is the holographic sparkle, but that's easy enough to add with a topper. I think the main difference maybe is that Cracked is a little bit more sheer and slightly lighter in the color. I can't really tell if it's cooler or warmer toned. Oh, and the other main difference is that Glitch has a green shift in extreme lighting. Now for AUREA, I knew I had to see this next to Bee's Bog Dweller, the one, the only, absolutely gorgeous green fine particle magnetic. It's the only one that I really have in my collection, but I knew it wasn't going to be an exact dupe since Bog Dweller has a little bit more of this blue toned green base color, which I know you can't really tell right now. I just wanted to show them unmagnetized at first, where they both have that really similar chromy, you know, satin fine particle shimmer going on. But yeah, once you magnetize it, you see just how dark the base color is in AUREA, but the magnetic shimmer does kind of look really similar, almost like a sibling. And that made me remember that Bee's Knees came out with this whole collection recently, and I'm pretty sure Scales and Scutes is the closest color-wise to AUREA. It's hard to say if it's an exact dupe, but definitely really, really close. Next for donuts, I knew I had to show this next to Mooncat's Drown My Demons, which is another deep teal blue kind of jelly base with a green magnetic. And I also wanted to show it next to Cracked Polish's Fight, which is not a magnetic, just a shimmer polish, but it's still that deep teal blue base with a green shimmer. I think the Crack stands out right away though, because it is a lot darker looking than the other two, and the shimmer isn't as glowy looking, but I actually think the shimmer color in Cracked is basically the same as Donuts, where they're both going from a green to teal in extreme lighting. I didn't really see a strong teal shift in Mooncat, but obviously once you magnetize them, the Mooncat looks more like a dupe. Then for Protect the Dolls, it immediately reminded me of ILNP's Bluebell, which I think is the closest that I have in my collection. It's a similar cornflower blue base, but ILNP is a lot more sheer. I think maybe doing a third coat would make it a little bit closer to Glitch, but I don't know, I think the Glitch is just a bit darker in its base color, and the other main difference is that Bluebell has an orange shimmer instead of pink. So even if you do decide to add a magnetic topper, it's not an exact dupe necessarily. I actually think the closest shade from ILNP is Skye, which is one of their magnetics. I remember it having a more pigmented base color, so I think it would kind of match the depth that Protect the Dolls has. It also has that pink shimmer, a silver magnetic, so I feel like it's really, really close. For Buy Panic, I first wanted to see it next to The River, which is a magnetic, but I just thought the purple base, blue shimmer combo, you know, was worth comparing. But when it comes to the actual finish, it reminded me more of Keys to the Kingdom. But I was surprised at how different they ended up looking on the nail, where Keys to the Kingdom is a little bit more sheer and also less visually noisy with the holographic, if that makes sense. Like, it looks like a much smaller dusting. So yeah, they're not exactly the same finish like I thought. And lastly, I wanted to show it next to Mooncat's Werewolf's Bane from the recent Deadly by Nature collection, which is another purple base with a blue shimmer and a scattered holographic sparkle. So on paper, they kind of sound the same, but on the nail, there is a big difference. Overall, I would say that Mooncat is a little bit more blue toned, a little bit brighter in its saturation, and the shimmer is more cobalt instead of aqua. Moving on to AVEN, I had to show this next to Astral Glass and Mayflower since I knew that the flaky mix was basically going to be the exact same. I do not blame Brie for reusing this mix because it is so gorgeous, but yeah, as you can see, Astral Glass is a little bit closer, being like that darker gray base. So I thought I could maybe recreate AVEN by layering Mayflowers over Cirque's charcoal jelly, which is a darker gray jelly, but doing one coat was not enough. I feel like AVEN definitely is very packed with the flakes. So I think for a closer recreation, I think I would also do an extra coat, so 3 coats of charcoal jelly followed by 2 coats of Mayflowers. Lastly, for reference, I did want to show this next to Mooncat's Triceratops, which is a gray jelly kind of base, but it has a much lighter aqua blue and green iridescent flaky mix, so definitely not dupes. I was really struggling with Lavender Menace. I feel like the closest shades that I had were Holo Taco's Playing the Field and Bee's Knees Floral Maiden. Between these two, I would say Bee's Knees is maybe closer because Holo Taco is more of this multi-chrome, color shifty magnetic, like with a background shimmer. I could see at least the magnetic shimmer in Bee's Knees being kind of close to Lavender Menace, at least when it comes to that like pinky purple color, but I'd say the bigger difference is the base color, where Bee's Knees is more of this plummy purple, maybe more full coverage too. Then for Sister Outsider, I pulled out Habibi, which is a magnetic, but I just thought seeing them side by side in the bottle would be helpful because they do look really similar in terms of the purple shimmer color. I think it's maybe a little bit cooler toned in Habibi though, while Sister is a little bit more of a pinky purple shade. And for Mooncat, I think the closest shade that I had was Port 666. Or 6666, which is another magnetic, and again it has more of this blue toned purple shimmer color, so neither of these are really dupes, but the shimmers do have similar color shifts in extreme lighting. And lastly, the only other two close enough purples that I have included ILNP's Bewitched and Holo Taco's Queen's Curse, which that one is another magnetic, but seeing it in the bottle and on the nail, I feel like they did look really similar, just looking like this purple sort of shimmer. It's at least the closest to everything else that I shared, especially next to Bewitched, which almost looks like a black base with a subtle purple shimmer. For Act Up, I first wanted to show this next to Prism Parade's Shortcake and ILNP's two-piece, which are both these pink neon creams, so they don't have this little shimmer particle in them like Act Up does, but even still the base colors are just a bit different, though I would say ILNP is closer than Prism. For reference, here is Act Up next to Mooncat's Meritten and Cirque's Flamingo. I know Meritten is not a neon, but I'm pretty sure Flamingo was, so I think mine has faded a little bit, but it's definitely lighter. For some slightly darker hot pinks with a blue shimmer, I pulled out Crack's Sandals Required and OPI's Exercise Your Brights, which I thought was going to be a dead-on dupe. I feel like seeing them in the bottle, they look so close, but on the nail, I think the OPI just looks a little bit darker, or maybe a smidge less neon, but the shimmer looks really close, so I feel like it's a good enough dupe. The Cracked was also kind of close, but more cool toned. Then for Everyone Calls Me Sylvia, I first pulled out Mooncat's Apparition because I thought Sylvia was just going to be like a black charcoal kind of magnetic, but since it's a little bit more blue, I then pulled out Mooncat's Apollo, which sort of has like a navy base color. I don't think it's like a true black or like a charcoal gray. So I guess technically Everyone Calls Me Sylvia is closer to Apparition, being like a charcoal gray to black leaning jelly base, but it is still a lot more sheer. Then for Ally, we are looking at it next to Holo Taco's Magnetic Taco, which sadly isn't around anymore, but also looking at it next to their Holo Magnetic Taco, which is closer anyway since it is holographic. I would say it's also a bit more similar in terms of being less crisp, especially compared to the plain magnetic topper. And lastly, we're comparing Be Gay, Do Crime next to Crack's Fairy Tinkle and Mooncat's Sugar and Spice topper, which are both very recent rainbow iridescent flake toppers. And all unique in their own ways. I would say Cracked is the most flaky dense, and it also doesn't have any additional holographic or reflective glitter in there. Glitch is definitely the most packed with both of those elements, while Mooncat does have some holo sparkle, but it also has some larger flakes too. So they're not exact dupes, but you probably don't need all three. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of Glitch's upcoming Pride collection. This is going to be launching on Friday, May 22nd at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And like I mentioned in the intro, $2 of every polish sold will be donated to the North County LGBTQ Resource Center, which is a local organization to Glitch. I will also have them linked below if you want to read more about them or just support them directly. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on these because overall, I did really like them. I think it's a really fun and kind of unique take on Pride because it's not as bright as I was initially expecting. Like you can see how much Act Up just really stands out from the lineup, and Obviously, I do love that one as like a neon pink, and I would love to see more neons like it in the future from Glitch. But for the rest of the lineup, I still really enjoyed them, even if some of them did have this like darker, moodier, edgier kind of vibe to them. I know it's a lot of magnetics. Trust me, I was also feeling the magnetic fatigue a little bit, but I would say my top favorite from this collection, probably maybe next to Act Up, is Lavender Menace. There's just something that caught me so off guard about the magnetic pigment in that one. I think it's just so, so pretty, and I just can't wait to wear that one again. And I also really loved AUREA, if I'm pronouncing that right, which is just that fine particle, deep green magnetic. It's just so incredibly stunning. Shouldn't be surprising that I really like it, since I also really loved Bog Dweller, and it just looks like it could be a sibling. Also, special shout out to Be Gay, Do Crime, because that has the best name. It's also so incredibly gorgeous. I know we've obviously seen a couple of these like iridescent rainbow flakies, but they're just all gonna be so pretty. So yeah, overall, just a really fun, gorgeous collection, really unique too for Pride, which I appreciate. And as always, I will have Glitch's website linked down below if you do wanna pick these up when they launch. But even if you don't, I hope that you like the video if you found it helpful, especially for the comparison portion. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!